Hello everybody, John here, and today onto the garage. You'll rejoin me soon when I pop the cover off the ECU. Big thanks to everybody who's playing along with me at home. And lots of encouragement and ideas, and that's great. A couple of people suggested, and I think they're right, it wasn't so much that I'd drilled out the bolts and used the easy outs, it was the heat of drilling out the bolts and using the easy outs, but probably ended up releasing the red Loctite, which is the issue. The bolts have been fixed in place with red Loctite, which you don't use unless you don't want to undo them. And if you do find you have to undo them, you have to apply heat, and quite a lot. So not really suitable for anything around plastics or electronics. I've added a little mini chuck to my standard chuck. That will give me a lot more clearance because this is quite narrow. And that matters because the next bolt I want to drill out is down here. You can see they've got this sort of recess. I can just about get at it. I need a bit of light down there to see where the centre is. Is that the middle? That's close enough. Well, I'm in there, not very deep, but I'm in there. Let's extend my drill. Can get drill bits with a, what would it be, 1/4 inch or 6mm hex attached. That would have been useful for this job. Or long series drills, obviously. So, let's give it a go with an easy out. Everything's been soaked in penetrant, obviously. Oh, something moved. Yes. Oh, excellent. Yeah, I think if I follow up with the easy out soon after drilling, the heat is helping me. Or maybe this hasn't got red on it, but it's still too difficult to remove, so it's going to have some. Yeah, and again, maybe you can't see actually because of the lighting. That's better. Loctite red. Absolute no-no. There's the last bolt. So hopefully I can get on that. The access is the worst of the three. Really am going to struggle with that one. This plastic device is really ruining my access. I'm just going to see if I can slacken the one bolt off and get it to move out of the way. Don't know. Can't remember what shape it is and what else it's attached to. That's not even speeded up. Ah, goody. Right, that's moving. Let's have a look-see if I can get it sufficiently out of my way, but I don't have to remove anything else. Yeah, I think so. So the bolt hole is obviously down here, and I can push that down out of the way of the chuck now. For a smaller drilling, because I'm struggling for access, pressure, and cuttingness, sharpness. Well off centre. Don't really want to cool it down, but I do want it to cut, so a little bit of lubrication. Okay. Yes. This one might be bringing a ferrule with it. Not sure. It's kind of retained. All right, well, now we've done that, if you lift the front edge, I have to lose this fuse lid again. Then you can pull forward a little bit, and then the whole thing should come out. Yep, there's the ferrule that should be in there. So now the Loctite red has done what it's supposed to do, permanently lock a thread. Oh. Let me go and free my tap wrench off. And I wouldn't have believed it possible. I've bent my easy out. What a pain. Okay, so we're in. So this is a compartment that holds the two most important brains in your car, modules if you like. This one at the front in this vertical rack, that's your gearbox controller. It's missing a piece of foam because that should fit snugly in there, but there you go. Another sign somebody's been here before me. That one is the engine ECU. Now, you need to undo these tamper-proof bolts in order to get at the connections to release it. I'm hoping nobody's done anything stupid with them. But what I'm going to do first, I'm going to vacuum this area because I've got swarf and I don't want to get in amongst the electrics. Okay, so before I disturb anything, I don't know if you're going to see it, but down here in the bottom of the box that the ECUs are in, I can see some damp. So, doesn't look like it's bad. The box isn't dirty enough for it to have been flooded. That's not a good sign. And if I look down here and rock the car, can you see liquid? Now, I've talked about this regularly in relation to these drain holes. However, different issue this time by the looks of it. I've always said this rubber band must be on. If it's not, it's easy for this compartment to fill with water. I mean, literally, you're going to funnel everything off the roof of the car and the windscreen of the car through there into this compartment with that rubber band and its associated rubber pipe missing. Now it's intact. I don't remember refitting that when I got the car, so I can only assume it's been there all along. But there's a hell of a lot of water in the bottom of this compartment. Now there are holes in the corners just the way it's fabricated, but you only need a leaf in there and it'll clog and mulch up, and before you know it, they fill. So may have some shorting has gone on. But let's press on. So this one is your transmission. I can literally just lift that out and place it to one side, because we're not having transmission problems. So let's ignore that. This one, which doesn't feel like it's being held in, there's a couple of foam blocks back here, get you a better angle, that hold it down there and there, and they're attached to the back half of the lid I've just removed. There's two more bolts, but they're behind the plenum, so you can't really see those. So I can pull this out from under there easy enough. But this bracket is to stop these connections being pulled out. Don't know. I would just wrestle it out and then undo these, or vice versa. I think I'll try and undo these and then wrestle it out. Now these have not been exposed to moisture, or shouldn't be. And of course they shouldn't have any thread lock on. So let's try the traditional technique. The screw is designed, or bolt head is designed with cams, so it's easy to tighten. Just turn. We go the other way and your screwdriver lifts out because of ramps. So what you need to do is apply excessive downward force whilst you attempt to unscrew it. Let's see if I can do that. Yes! Yes! There's literally all the weight, I'm picking my feet up off the ground. But that's how you're supposed to defeat these, as far as I'm aware. Two more on this side. See if I'm able to get them out. It's more of a problem with the angle on this. Not necessarily further away. That one's gone. And the other one, let's try my linesman's pliers. So these have got teeth going the opposite way to what you'd expect in a pair of pliers. Yeah. Okay, so they're all moving. This is very good news. So I'll get these out and come back to you. Now that will slide off backwards, or towards the front of the car I should say. There we go. Captive nuts below. These brackets are just bolted to the side of the unit. And now we can get at all these electrical connectors. They're all different, so you don't need to worry about which one's going to go where. Obviously it helps when you're making a video. I've got perfect, you know, I can look back and just see which bundle goes where. But what I'm going to do at this stage is I'm going to disconnect the car battery, because this is expecting some current all the time, so there'll be a tiny spark when I disconnect the appropriate connector. So I don't think you need to watch me disconnect the car battery, but back I go. Right, all I've done is disconnect the negative terminal, and then each of these has got a little springy tab in the middle. Press down on the springy tab whilst pulling the connector back. There we go. One. I tell you what, even though it shouldn't matter, as I said, got a nice easy place there to put numbers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So we can now just tuck those under and lift this out. So now we can have a look together inside the compartment, and there's the moisture I was talking about. And because it's so localized, I'm prepared to believe, yeah, but that might be penetrant that has got through the gap somehow, because remember I did drill holes in the tops of these bolts and has dropped down. So I'm less worried about that than I was. This is the computer fan that keeps the ECU cool. It actually works by drawing air out of the unit. There's a rubber pipe, which is all crushed up. Let's have a look at that. Can you see that? That is where the air comes in, and that comes via your air conditioning. So that's a bit distorted. I wonder how it's got like that. It's not restricted enough to cause an issue, I don't think. But yeah, that's interesting. And you've got these big rubber seals going in to these big U shapes. to allow the wires to go through both sides. It all looks good. All looks in decent condition. There's no sign of anybody messing around with it. Of course, we've got a brass ferrule here to put a new bolt back in to put the lid back on. One here. One missing over here, which I might be able to salvage and araldite in. And then I've got this one where I drilled the bolt, but when I was easy outing it, the head came off because this one is locked in so hard. So I can have another crack at removing that. Probably the boss is going to come out as well. If it's so tight I'd rip the head off, then probably it's not going to come. But hey-ho. So here's our ECU. Jaguar LNG 141OBD MB 079700-8980 12 volt Denso Spain. And you'll note we have void if broken tabs, which are intact and do say Denso on them. So this would lead me to believe that this is the original bit of kit, because if it would come from second hand from a parts breakers, I would expect to see something written on it, because they're not going to remember what sort of vehicle it is without something written on it. Even that's not going to help. They're not going to go to the expense of manufacturing fake Denso seals. So the only way this is even a recon is if Denso did it. So I don't think this has been messed with. We're taking a look at the electrical connectors. Discoloration at the bottoms there, but in fairness, the whole of this looks yellow. That looks white with yellow bits, and if you look up it's a little whiter, so I think that's just age related colouring. None of the terminals look bent or charred. That's dust rather than charring. So next thing, we're going to go in this and see if we see anything obvious. Now obviously it says guarantee void if seal broken. We're not overly worried about that on cars over 20 years old. And I'm going straight in. So and obviously to take the bottom off, I've got to break the seals. So I'm going to do a little bit of good practice. Seals broken. And then today's date, I think, is the 15th of the 11th, 25 for diagnostic. JD. So, anybody else sees those seals that have been broken, they will at least know it's a modern thing. Gives them a few clues as to what was going on. You could of course try and pick them off and resit them, but I'm not that sort of guy. Just trying to lift it off carefully, because as a problem solver, I don't want to disturb the crime scene. There we go. So I'm looking at the back of this for any clues, and the only sorts of clues you'd see is something melted, something burnt. It's a plastic sheet. Nothing. We're glancing, and I'm not an electronics person, so I am glancing at the bottom of the circuit board. because the top of the unit is here. And first impression is nothing to see here. Now when these do have problems, it tends to be the capacitors. They're electrolytic capacitors, and that just means they're like an AA battery in terms of construction. They break down in a way that creates acid and residue, and they're on the other side. If you're a student of electronics, I should be earthed and all sorts of things at this stage. But not really in that sort of environment. I do recommend not mauling the board. So I think I've got everything out. Now, don't tear this out whatever you do, because there may be ribbon connectors involved or earth straps that are bolted to the lid. In this particular instance, not. That's just an age-related piece of sticking down. Again, zero to see in there, no debris, no charring, no corrosion. Let's flip this over. These circular drum-shaped items are the electrolytic capacitors. On circuit boards such as these, they often act as a memory, or to keep devices energized, which are memories. But I wouldn't profess to know what they're for on this circuit board. Right, well, my first reaction is it looks good. In fact, it looks pristine. What I'll do now is just stare at this hard under there we go, bright light and my old man lens, and see if I can see anything, and I'll report back. See you in a moment. Okay, so, well, I won't lie, I'm a little disappointed. I was hoping to find a pretty obvious fault in here, and I can't. Obviously, I'm only doing a visual inspection, and I don't know what I'm looking at in a lot of circumstances, but I've stared hard with strong lights at each and every soldered joint. And I can't see any issues. It's too fine for me to continuity check everything, because there's a lacquer over a lot of the components anyway, so without stripping it, I'm not going to easily be able to do that sort of thing. These capacitors, as we said, are known to give issues. Tends to be on the early cars, and they leak out from underneath down onto the circuit board and etch it and make false connections, bridging, shorts, etc., as well as the capacitor itself no longer doing its job properly. And they're easy enough to buy and replace, but I am seeing nothing. So that's a little disappointing. However, should I want to do any more testing now, because I've broken into the ECU and the cover that was protecting it, I'll at least be able to get at this easily to do checks. Okay, so while we're in here, what I want to do is I'm going to disconnect this fuse box. So it's 13mm to remove the positive lead. Remember, I've got the battery disconnected. Don't do any of this unless you have. Then we've got a couple of 8mm, which secure the fuse box to the ECU compartment. They are overly tight, which is now making me paranoid. Captive nuts on these, but again they're ferrules in plastic, so I'm being careful not to pull them out. Oh, wow, what has been going on in here? Yep, it's pulled a ferrule out. Somebody's been playing with red Loctite again. Red. So I was right to be paranoid. And I know you can't see it, but I'll show you in a minute. There's a couple of electrical connectors under here. They're squeeze and pull. I'm struggling to maneuver my hands into the right angles. There we go. Just check if those can be reversed. They're labelled A and B. So A and B. So give me a moment. And A is white, which is good. A. So again, just checking for charred connections. Nothing looks like it's a problem there. Just going to set this to one side. When we look down there, it's getting a bit damp and messy. Yeah, again, I'm seeing liquid. Don't know if you can see that or not, if it shows up. So I'm going to remove the ECU compartment so we can understand what's going on. So we've got one, two, and then at the back there, 3 and 4 bolts to remove, and they are 10mm. Interesting, that one was loose. I'm particularly intrigued now as to, you know, somebody's obviously been in the compartment because red thread lock, but they didn't change the ECU. But they didn't repair the ECU or look inside it. It's possible they replaced it with one from another car, but seems unlikely. And it's, you know, as soon as you go anywhere near an ECU, you're getting quite sophisticated. And this was not a main dealer thing because red thread lock, they'd know better. I took out 4 bolts. Is it going to move for me? Yes, it's stuck down. I can hear the sticky tape going. I am a bit restricted by the plenum cover. I may have to pull that in a second. Yeah. Okay, so to get this cover off, first thing you need to do is pull off your windscreen wipers. A black plastic cover at the pivot end, and then a 13mm bolt, nut I should say, which in this case doesn't want to come undone. Oh, blimey. Undo these 2 or 3 turns and then try to wobble the arm, because they're a spline, a tapered spline. You want to loosen the arm from the shaft if you can. If not, you'll be reaching for a puller to pop this off. No, they don't want to come. There we go. Next, find these sort of oval shaped tabs at the base of the screen, and very gently and very squarely pull them out. These little legs are notorious for breaking off, and these are hard to get. But beneath each of those is a posi drive screw head, and then there are a couple more along the front edge, there and there. So once you've got all those out, should be able to lift the plenum off. There we go. Okay, so now you've got a better view of the ECU box. That's the pipe that takes a little bit of air conditioning and blows it in there. Poke him down the side. And we should now be able to lift this a little more. We've got all the wiring going in here. Just going to disconnect the computer fan, and I'm going to slide these big grommets out, if I can, from the side. Be able to wrestle this thing until we can get under it. I'm going to disconnect the ECU for the transmission at this stage. We've got a lever, just pull up, and then that sort of hinges off, like so. It'd be a very rare event anybody had ever removed this box. I'm only doing it partially for the interest, but because I can see liquid in the corner compartment, And you know, who knows, it might be connected with our issues. Starting to think I can rotate it if I can get that under there, or I take the top off at the back. And top off at the back is probably easier. Torx fittings this time. There we go. Okay. There's a big trumpet there. Means it won't come out the way I'm trying. Let's just unplug these relays from their various clips. Can that trumpet be removed? Let me take the computer fan out to see if the trumpet below it is removable. Instinct is no. I've been wrong. Oh, maybe. So there's a computer fan. Let's leave that in the base. There is the trumpet. So that was part of what was making it difficult. Just got to manoeuvre around a few brake pipes. 100 wires. See that big open cavity there with the wiring running through? That's why these cars rust out in the floor well. Helped by the plate underneath, it's welded on, that can be removed. Because if this area fills up, there's nothing stopping the water flowing back and splashing inside your car. And there is water in this car, here. Now I can disconnect all them connectors down there. Do I wanna? Sometimes you forget what you're trying to achieve. Well, I think I've wrestled sufficiently to get to see the liquid down here and be able to film it for you guys. There we go. It's not as big a pool as I thought, but a pool nonetheless. Now I want to know why it isn't running out in that corner, because it should. And is there any electrics down there? Yeah, a few, but just wires. Wires survive being wet a lot better than you'd imagine. So what happens if I fish around in the water? Ugh, something soft. Ugh. Well, it's starting to drain. Just because I've disturbed it. Actually hear it falling out under the car now. All that water was in that well. Getting to see exactly what the situation was is pretty damn difficult though. Filming it even more so. Right, I think what I'm going to do is down in that corner, I mean it's wet anyway, I'm going to spray some gunk, which is not just me saying a random word, that's a thing with some gunk to show you. There we go. Yeah. Engine degreasant gunk. Really powerful stuff. you can dilute this and brush it on to clean engines, and that's what it's intended for anyway. And I'll spray some in the corner, put a tray underneath, and then I'll rinse it with some water. I'll use deionized water so I don't cause more rust, and flush out that bottom corner. Down here we've got all the insulating foam. It doesn't feel sodden, it doesn't mean it hasn't been wet. And if I just come down here, it doesn't feel wet on the carpets in the appropriate areas, so maybe no issues yet. It was just building up. We shall see. If nothing else, you've seen the construction of that box now in a rather more dramatic style than I anticipated when I said, let's take this circuit board out. Right, that's probably enough for now. I'm absolutely jiggered. Also, you might notice I'm wearing a knee brace. I've twisted my knee, and standing up in here is probably not doing me any good anyway. So I've got to leave it there. There's one other thing I'm thinking is an advantage of taking that plenum off. We know all the fluid escaped from our brakes. In the eventuality that it's connected with the master cylinder, we've got really good access in this area with the plenum off, so that can stay for a little while. And you do have the option of removing this panel, and that gives you a bit better access to wiring at the back of the throttle body, which might be useful. But yeah, a little disappointed that I can't see an error there, and I'm not clued up enough to test the ECU. We could do some resistance, conductivity checks, continuity checks, etc. Thanks very much to, was it Kieran? I think I've got it on my phone just for such an eventuality. Yeah, Kieran Fanning, he sent me through some details on some tests mainly connected with the throttle body, but the codes we were getting off the OBD2 scanner could reflect, again, just poor voltages, but equally throttle bodies or the connections between the throttle body and the ECU and the ECU relays. So yeah, Kieran sent me through some information on maybe how to check that. But yeah, we've got fundamental things to sort out here, as well as some reassembly, and we'll put the ECU back together in such a way that it can be got at far more easily in future. See you soon, folks. Bye.